right, I am back. I know it's been so long. Happy Friday, heading into the long weekend. Like, it's a long weekend for me. I know that folks are, listening and coming into this from different places. Not everybody has the holiday off, even here in the States. I worked in the service industry. Back in the day, I did some retail work, and man, how annoying it was to have to work on the main holidays when all the other people you knew in the universe were off. Kind of stunk. And obviously, folks, not everyone in the world celebrates it, but hopefully, happy long weekend. If not, happy regular weekend. I'm continuing work on my as yet untitled starter adventure. Hey, Redcaps. I kind of just going to be, it's going to be bouncing forward. So there are a couple things on the map I haven't done yet. I'm going to add one exit, I think, from one of these levels out to somewhere in here. So the main exit is really very straightforward. Only one, they're starting here and they just kind of go up and out, up in here, out the front doors. That's kind of the conventional way to leave, but I want to put an unconventional way to leave. So I think I am going to add some kind of shed out here, and then maybe one of these levels will have something that connects to the shed. If that's one of the best parts of state jobs. Yes, I can imagine. I mean, once you get out of kind of service type stuff, then you kind of get, I guess, locked in. Not even locked into is not the right word. You get in all the regular holidays, but it was always that thing that I never quite got all the way used to when I was working those kinds of things, is having the days off that nobody else has, but other than kind of retail people. It's like, oh, I'm off on a random Tuesday, but then there's other things. Memorial Day is like, no, you got to work. It's like, so that's not something that I missed from that type of stuff. Hey, Brian Smith, 245 Jackson asks, what software is that for the map? Affinity Designer, which, and I feel like because someone asks every stream, so I'll give the rundown again. But not a Affinity Designer is just a vector graphics software. It is not a it is not a dedicated specialized map maker. It's just vectors. All these things are shapes. Part of the reason why it's so simple is Dave, you're close. He mentioned Illustrator. It's basically Illustrator, but it's Affinity's Illustrator. Part of the reason why these symbols are so simple is because I made them myself. It's not hard to make the shapes, but obviously I'm not expert enough. I'm not gifted enough at it, and I haven't trained myself enough to get really complex with it. But you can do simple things pretty simply, I guess, is how I would say it. So pretty easy to do. I might do something with these symbols if I get enough of them. Maybe I'll do something. Maybe I'll make them into kind of a sprite. What do they call it? A sprite sheet? Something in vectors and throw them out somewhere. Inkscape. Yeah, I've heard Inkscape mentioned a lot. I haven't used it. So Affinity is not free. I don't know if there's even a free version. There might be a free trial version. But what Affinity has going for it is it's not super expensive. And there are sales where you can reduce that cost, but it's a one-time fee. You pay for it, you own it. It's not subscription based. And that's kind of the real advantage, I think, to me. That's their advantage over Adobe, who they've patterned their suite after. So I use Affinity. And there's a little bit of a learning curve. Not everything works the same. I've worked quite a bit with Adobe, though, again, I'm not expert in any ways. And there's some times where I feel like I'm looking for the Adobe way to do something, and I got to figure out the Affinity way to do something. But they've got good support. There's plenty of stuff out there, and there's plenty of brushes and all kinds of add-ons, things you can get. It works pretty darn well. And they've got for the purposes of game stuff, they have a Photoshop stand-in. They've got their Illustrator stand-in, and they also have an InDesign stand-in called Publisher. So you're pretty much set if you wanted to find something that you could do kind of pro level graphic design, publishing, desktop publishing kind of workflow. You can grab all three. And like I said, they oftentimes, fairly often will run deals and specials where you can grab 1, 2, or 3 for a reasonable price. So I would say if you're serious and you can spend a little bit of money on what you're trying to do, then I think it's kind of a no-brainer. I know folks get a lot with figuring out ways to hack. I mean, I've heard people putting together publishing books through things like, I don't know, like I saw somewhere they'd done it through, what was it through? Not what is Microsoft's presentation software, or like Google, like Google Slides or something, and it's amazing stuff. But I don't know. I think if you're want to do something and kind of find a way to do it sustainably, I think figuring out how to do it with a somewhat kind of pro, or at least something that kind of can get up to that kind of capability is good. And I think if you can learn something like Affinity Publisher, I think you put yourself in good stead in terms of the things you're capable of doing, not just now, but in the future, and then kind of, whatever. MS Paint is all you need. Some people do all kinds of stuff. PowerPoint as well. Trying to think of PowerPoint. People said they've done stuff in PowerPoint. It's like, good on you, but man, it doesn't sound like my cup of tea. Any case, I'm just kind of rambling with stuff. So I played in Daniel's game, and on my way, so I had to write. So when I go to play in Daniel's game, which is Thursdays, it's maybe the one time in the week where I have a commute at this point because I work from home. So if I'm not leaving to go do something like, I don't know, if there's a special event or go out to eat or something like that, I'm kind of just at home. Or if I'm not at home, I'm in the neighborhood, walking around essentially. So when I get to go into Manhattan, it gives me an opportunity to do some reading, and then also just kind of be thinking about stuff and kind of write down some notes. So I'd written down some notes. So I have some ideas, and I'm going to try to, and I kind of wrote them down only in very, kind of clipped notational form. So one idea that isn't actually adventure specific, but I've been thinking about this. I'll probably do a video on it. Maybe I'll do a little piece on it, but essentially it's, I was calling it overloading, but it's not really overloading. It's using the morale roll to kind of set up what situation is happening. So let me give you an example is what I was kind of thinking about it. So here we have in the storeroom, and I mentioned this, I asked the question yesterday. In the storeroom, you've got a combat. So the idea would be that when the party, this is kind of like I don't know, I think maybe the only one I have the party comes in on kind of let's move that out here. In progress scene, right? Like I asked, like, hey, how do people feel about this kind of, not a cutscene, but sort of like, that whenever the party gets there, this thing is taking place. And the example I used was probably a bad one for my purposes, because the example I used yesterday was, when you listen at the door and there's this conversation that's taking place, and and the idea is you're supposed to glean something from the conversation. And of course, it just so happens that whenever you happen to get there, whether you get there really fast, or you get there really slow, you get there right at the moment when the name of the killer is revealed. Right, whatever. Okay. And I think I asked, like, how do people tend to feel with that? Because it's one of the things that shows the seams a little bit, but it can feel kind of video gamey or whatever. Like, oh, we just happen to be here at this time, right? It's not a die roll. It's not whatever. It's like, okay, no matter what happens, it's like you're hitting a cutscene or something like that. You're getting to this pre-planned moment, even though that's kind of exists in all kinds of things, because just what's in the room when you get there is itself a pre-planned moment. But this feels like maybe even a step kind of beyond that sometimes. And this is just, it was at one point cold water for the working man. Now the ice is melted and it's kind of lukewarm water for the working man. But in my case, I'm not having, there is something I want to have this in progress moment, but it's not dialogue based. There's nothing you arrive on the scene as there's a fight taking place, and how you interact with that fight, of course, is going to be up to you. But what I wanted to do with this fight, and what I was thinking about kind of before, and then when I was also thinking about it in terms of this fight, is would it be fun, interesting? Would it add anything? And the answer might be, in terms of adding things, the answer might be no, it won't. But what you would do is, roll for, and I would probably use, because there's no morale table, right? You're just checking against someone's morale value. So when you roll morale, assuming you're rolling it for, either hirelings or NPC types, or just full on, just NPC types, creatures, whatever. If you're rolling, I would roll, the idea would be to kind of roll morale at the beginning of the encounter, right? So in this case, you're coming up on combat. I'm just trying to find it because I might put it in as kind of using reaction rolls a little bit, but it's really for morale. You roll morale, and let's say, I think it's if you roll above, I believe it's you roll above the number. So if their morale is 8, you roll more than 8, then essentially they're failing their morale. And this is why the things with the highest morale have morale 12, because it's a 2d6 roll. So you're going to, so like a gray ooze, for example, just flipping over, a gray ooze has a morale of 12. It's never gonna run. But unlike for a reaction roll, when this morale thing that I'm considering is not about how the NPCs react to the characters. This is not about, like in this instance, this is not about how the cultists are reacting to these players showing up. What this would be a reaction, this would before, is basically how they are in this moment, right? Because the PCs are intruding upon this moment that, like, they're in with these, two NPCs, right? The zombies who don't check morale because they're undead, and they're mindless undead, I guess I should say, and then these cultists, right? So it's really kind of checking the morale versus the zombies, kind of. But it's a set scene, so I'm not running the combat, so it's like nothing's happened. I just kind of want to know. It's like this morale roll is a little bit like, well, how are they feeling about this in this moment? And I'll write it up real quick in a table so you maybe get a better idea. Right, so it says similar to that table that determines enemy's disposition. I mean, kind of, maybe. So anyway, let me watch this. Watch this. All right. Roll morale for the living cultists. I'm just going to put this here for right now. I might move it. If I decide to kind of use this, then maybe I'll make it something, put somewhere. I need a table. Yeah, I need a table. What do I, 1? I think I need 5. 5 and, or 6 and 2. Do D6. All right. I'm just to start, I'm just going to use the same kind of what your reaction. And presumably you could say, well, Todd, why don't you just use reaction? And I could. Oh, I need one more. And maybe ultimately I will, but I don't want them to be tied together, because reaction is specifically how they feel about the party. This is not that. Now, you could roll it twice. You could do, like, there's a whole bunch of ways you could kind of mitigate this or do something with this to make it, what's a good. But what I'm not doing is trying to set up how they feel about the party in any way. This is not about how they feel about the party. I don't know if I like that one. They have so many of these and then so few that I like. I'll do that one. I don't really love that one either. Is there another one? Can we get a nice, that's it? Maybe, was that it? I guess I like the, okay, maybe I'll do this one. Yeah, this probably will work. So the low numbers, and this is where it's weird too, and because Daniel loves this stuff, and folk, he loves all the different rolls and dice and all the different permutations. But part of which I think can be confusing is you roll morale. You're rolling reaction for monsters. Higher reaction is better in terms of the players. You're rolling morale for the monsters. Lower number is better for them. I suppose you could say what you have in common is higher numbers is better for the characters. So that's not always true, I guess, depending on what you're rolling, but whatever. In this case, you might say, okay, so either way, if morale, which you're rolling generally against PCs, though it could be hirelings, so it could be probabilities, the lower numbers are better. Higher numbers mean that your morale is breaking. I don't know that I totally. I mean, I don't totally love it. I would love, I think, that you just, we have numbers. Let's just have always ascending numbers be good for whoever's rolling the dice or not. It's probably neither here nor there, but it's one of those things that I, you have to keep in mind. You have to remember. It's like, okay, in this case, for this kind of morale roll, remember 12 is your ultimate morale. So they're immune to all these things that are getting. This would be the kind of the worst. This would be the best sort of thing. And these guys never break if you're at 12. So I was thinking of, so we have this thing, we have this set situation. So we're essentially entering a set situation. And the set situation is 2 living cultists, some number of, and we can say 4 by default, of zombies that are locked in combat. And what the idea behind this is really to add a little bit of flavor / context to this. So sure, they're locked in combat, but what does that mean? Where are the zombies? Kind of like, where are the zombies? Where are the cultists? I could leave that to the GM. And I think, as always, the GM could just override it. But I thought it might be fun to have a roll that would kind of sort of set the scene a little bit and tell you a little bit about what's going on in the battle. So 12 is kind of the worst. So we might say are hiding behind barrels as zombies clumsily lurch, and I know I spelled that one, towards them. Something like that. So now, if you felt the desire to, you roll, you get 12. This is the kind of most fearful. Maybe I'll even put something like fearful. I could even bold that to make it even, whoops. Oh, they're fearful and hiding. Now I might not need all these numbers. We'll see. 2 would be the best possible thing, which would be that the cultists have pushed back the zombies to the edge of the stairs and are aggressively attacking them. And this may be the best one. So they roll really well on the morale. And we're saying that means that they are, and I might want to use this kind of formula so that the first part kind of gives you that here's they are in their morale. They're fearful, maybe I don't even need the hiding. They're fearful, they're whatever. So I'll probably have to rewrite. I'll probably want to rewrite them to kind of keep this sort of formulaic type thing. But you getting the idea? The cultists have the high ground. It would be foolish to attack them. Well, the stairs are going up. So in this case, they are, remember, these are this is this room, the storeroom. So in one scenario, like the cultists might be hiding here and the zombies are kind of lurching around. In the other one, they've got them up against the stairs and they're just kind of hacking at them. So basically, the idea behind it is to kind of the morale part. So you might say, well, what is it? Just a random table? And the part I was thinking about is it can be kind of double duty. It can tell you the morale, which either it's very low, and I could probably even put like panic, right? Or it's, in this case, it's very high. They're extremely confident. And then we can have some things, in the middle. All right, so we have panic, we have extremely confident. Maybe we have fearful here, and I can use a different fearful. Wary. What's the word I'm looking for? I could just have confident. I don't know. There's probably some other word I could use. What's another word for confident? I don't know. I'll just put confident there. I can come back to that later. So it's like it's doing double duty, right? And I could probably split this into two columns. One for their morale, and then kind of for the like where are they in the situation? They're extremely confident. They could be confident, they could be wary, they could be fearful, they could be in a panic. Right. So it says it's a role for each faction represented in the room that adds dynamism to a bog standard room description. Yeah, I mean, in this case, we only have to roll for one faction. I suppose, yeah, you could, presumably, if there were multiple factions, you could, but yes, it's a way to add some dynamism in a way to how the room is. So yeah, you could look at it and say, oh, we got these three, this kind of situation in the room with whomever, and yeah, we want to roll. It's like that. We want to kind of. It's kind of like I said, it's a double duty thing. It will tell you like where are you starting from morale. So this role would kind of replace your book value, right? So we have these cultists, and maybe I would say that their default morale is 8 or something, right? Which tells you what you're rolling against. But in this case, we're going to have morale rolled when you enter the situation. We say we're going to roll morale when we get there. That will tell you how what these particular cultists are thinking about of their own situation, right? Because this is again independent of the party. That's kind of one of the things. They could be in a panic. You could roll this and say they're in a panic, they're fearful and hiding, and when the party shows up, you get an extremely aggressive reaction, negative reaction roll, and that translates to them attacking the party out of this because they're attacking them out of their fear. That maybe and you come up with the reasons why, right? So it's not meant to replace, let's say, that kind of reaction roll, but it's something you can use in combination with them. Say, okay, I'm going to roll for this, or and the other part is you can roll this in advance, right? In terms of your prep thing. Oh my gosh, do I need to roll? How many things do I need to roll in a room at times? Like you can roll this in advance. This is part of you could do as your prep cycle. Okay, they're the storeroom, and heck, and this adventure is not that much to prep at this point. We're going to roll to see it. And then now you have, I don't know, a little bit of, there's just a little bit of dynamism, just a little bit of everybody's game can be a little bit different. If you run it 3 times, maybe you get different combinations of things 3 times. And so you get a little bit of different situations. The party walks in, it's going to feel different if the party walks in and the cultists are fearful, not just in the fact that changes how the cultists might react to them, regardless, whatever they react, I would use it to flavor it. But also the fact that maybe when the party walks in here, the zombies have free run across. Maybe they see something more active because these guys are hiding, and maybe the zombies are kind of like, then they see fresh meat show up here who's actually moving around, that they actually bypass the cultists and run at the player characters. And then what do the cultists do? Maybe they use that to escape. Maybe you just adding a whole bunch of different ways that this one room can go down through rolling those dice, and you can do it in advance. So if you want to do it in advance and then think about it and think about what that means if the cultists are hiding versus what it means if the cultists have almost beaten them all the way back to the stairs, what do they do? If they feel like they have the zombies kind of contained, do they send one of their guys, do they send one of their guys out? Do they try to call for whatever? There's any kind of number of things they might try to do, and you get to kind of have fun with that. And here's a little way to help you do that by using a role that you might use anyways, which is your morale. It's really like you're calling for, instead of using the default book morale, which you still could, right? If the cultist morale is 8, you could just go and say, oh, it's 8. They're wary. That's what they're doing. And probably what I'll ultimately do is have a morale chart with these titles, and then I will reference the titles with this. So I can say, okay, like if you roll for morale, here are the different morale ones. And then you could do a book morale and say, oh, book morale, they're wary. So this is going to happen here. But that, and if you wanted to mix it up, then you could do something different. No, yeah. So the cutscene thing, would not. It was less about like you're going to catch some dialogue than it was that you're going to catch a battle that's in progress. So whenever you show up, the battle's in progress. But this is a way for making it a little bit. I mean, this is really more for the GM to the party. Hopefully, everything's done in such a way that it's just seamless for them. Oh, they walk into the room and here's what's happening. But for the GM, you get to have a little bit of fun with just be able to kind of mix it up a little bit is what's happening. You don't have to. It would be something you don't have to use it. But then I can have it and then I can leverage it for different things. So I'm not gonna. I don't think I'm gonna fill all these out for now. Probably look for another. Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned it on that other stream. I don't know if you caught any of that, Brian Smith. I think you hopped in maybe for a little bit. I don't recall, but I think sometimes we do things for like to give, for GM joy, which I'm kind of down with. But sometimes I feel as players, a lot of that stuff is making players' lives or players adding more randomness, adding more chaos to things that I think that sometimes as players we'd rather not be not be reduced to a lot of randomness. Here, it's less about that. Yeah, you get to play with another element that you can have fun being dynamic if you want to roll it when they get there, or if you want to roll it in advance. But it doesn't really affect. I mean, certainly, yeah, it affects the default situation, but it's not. It's something that's outside the player's control. Anyway, this is not something that they would have had any control over. Let's see. Brian Smith says I should check out the Absolute Tabletop Frozen King module. Oh, is that the one that's kind of like? I feel like somebody mentioned. I'll have to look into it again. I thought somebody mentioned. Maybe it was you. Maybe it was somebody else. That they've done these things with kind of replayability kind of things in mind. But yeah, it would definitely be similar to that kind of thing if we need it. And it may even be just for me if I run this multiple times. That each time you might have something a little bit different. So I'm just going to add that there, just as kind of almost a note to myself. Oh yeah, what else did I have? One of the other things, where is it? Okay. Oh yeah. So this would be. I'm gonna be kind of jumping around a bit. Yeah. The Great Hall. What did I have? What was I gonna put here? The tapestry. There's this. I think this is to the second floor. Was that gonna be the? I need to redo these headers and things, but or I'll just oh, I didn't want that. Stairway to the living quarters. And then we need the living quarters room, which would be, I guess I'll do this one. And then we've got the I guess the bunks, which would be this first area. Bunks. Then we've got the high priest's quarters. I don't know if he's going to be a technical high priest, but I'm just putting it in there because I got. And then the locked room. Brian says they got to write up a post on the forum today or tomorrow to share what they've been up to, trying to craft post-apocalypse stuff. Oh, please do. I'll try to bang together a quick car combat game for the next weekend. What's the next weekend, Brian Smith? Are you just running it for friends? Is it a jam? Is it a con? What's the next weekend? I've been trying to get. I've been using when I've been kind of for Perplexity for doing kind of researchy sort of things. It's been not working very well for me of late. or it hasn't been working at all. Just been spinning its wheels. I'm going to see if this works this time. I'm looking for some names. Now it's getting me some. I don't know if Brian Smith does Discord, or maybe he does, just doesn't, he hasn't gone on our presence, but the forums are good. Don't, it's kind of, I feel like, in my attempts to fragment the community further with Discord and the forums, but I feel like if you mean it to last, make sure it's on the forums, because who knows? I'm not saying I'm going to do anything with Discord. You can't, it's not mine. I can't count on it ultimately. Right. And whereas the forums, they're mine. So if you ever want something you want's going to be there, at least is there as long as I am around. And you can always do something like put it, which you can't do with Discord. You can always put it in the Wayback Machine and log it there. The forums are mine. They'll be there as long as I'm around. If you put on, if Discord is great and I enjoy it for the moment to moment and being able to respond, and it's fun, but I wouldn't put on anything that I wanted to be remembered, because who the heck knows what's going to happen from time to time. Oh, interesting. So I'm getting some names here. So I decided, say 245 Trioxin says that Easy D6 Wasted Worlds just came out. I heard about that. I need to check that out. And it has vehicle combat. Oh, Brian likes it. Seen it already and likes it. Oh, interesting. Cottage Con 2024. Is that a real thing, or are you going to a cottage with some friends and calling it a con to humor me? All right, so we got some names here. I need a name. So I decided, one of the things I decided was that the daughter of the local lord is being kept here, and I need a name. Oh, Saradwin. That's pretty good. Isolde, fair lady. Melisande, strong in work. Oh, Melisande is kind of good too. Aveline, hazelnut. Beatrice, she brings happiness. Philip, a lover of horses. Matilda, mighty battle maid Matilda. I see. Well, I'm glad you're having some friends over. I'm actually going, I'm going to Studio B for the long weekend. I have some family coming. I don't think we'll do any role playing though. My cousin's coming. He's a big board gamer. I'm sure we'll play multiple. He loves Wingspan, but he also I have a game that I haven't played yet. Oh, I have a bunch of those, but one that he knows, which is called what? Can't remember the name of it. It's cat themed, but the name is escaping me for the minute. In any case, I know he was saying he wants to teach that one. A dread scenario with have you ever watch any of the Red Letter Media stuff? They do that. They do a giant Jenga sometimes with VHS tapes. I forget what they call it, but that'll probably be a lot of fun. Well, let's see. There's Rowena, famous friend. Matilda, mighty battle maid. Mighty battle maid. Let's see. I like Melisande. I'll go with that one. I want something has a strength. So I felt like I was considering who to put in the chamber. So I'm putting this person, Melisande, who's the daughter who I got to find the name for this person. But oh yeah, Junka. There we go. Yep, Junka, which is a great name for Junka instead of Jenga. Yeah. Bogini means goddess in Polish. Oh, that's interesting. I should work because I have some Polish heritage, so I should work in some Polish. That's usually not a language I go in that direction, but I should. All right. So the thing is, I'm putting the daughter, but she's actually going to be. She is a skilled and avid hunter. She and her party. Artie? Her party. Oh, you know what? I'm going to put that in the history section. So I'm trying to put a little bit of what's happening before. This past week, the cultists captured. What did I call her name? How did I spell it? Melisande. Sand, the daughter of the, and I don't have the name of the town, so Lord. When she and a party of her friends were caught out hunting. Redcap says, I rescued a local hunter. Now you have a guide back to town. Actually, I mean, that's true too. Though that actually wasn't even entering my thinking. The now she can guide us back to town bit. It was, and she would definitely be helpful. She doesn't know this area over around here. This is not, if we zoom in here, she was over, I'm guessing, I'm going to think that she was caught. My thing is she had crossed the river somewhere, was maybe in this area here, maybe even hunting for whatever layers here. So she'll have some knowledge, but maybe not. Maybe she'd have to, it might take a little work to get there. She doesn't know exactly where she is. But a couple of things. So here was my idea, right? As I've been trying to inject a little bit of, not necessarily, I wouldn't go as call it faction play, though I suppose that's kind of what it is. So remember we were talking before about, well, what's the prize, right? If the party just escapes with their lives and nothing else, kind of like, what are these sort of elements of what would make, we were going to look at this as a module. I guess that's what it is. Look at it as an adventure and say, well, what kind of things could we have? What kind of things going on? So I was thinking about like, well, if the party just escapes and gets back to town, or it's a village, not a town, gets back to the Lord, he'll know about the disappearance of his daughter will be known. She's got kind of a last location, which they don't know she's here, but if the party indicates either through that they saw or whatever, that, it might be a good thing. You could find out like, oh yeah, we got to go back and get her. And we had that kind of joking that depending on how long they take, maybe there'll be an undead VIP before they get there. But the other element is kind of introducing. So part of what I thought was, well, we have these different elements we're kind of introducing, or maybe that's not the right way to say it. There are different bits of information that the party can get depending on what they do, where they go, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things they could do, so we know that there's going to be a guy maybe with a satchel that's got like a map on it that will show something down here. Something in this area, the X marks the spot that there's a buried cache, a way to get some loot. If you can get there, there's some stuff there. That's kind of one bit they could get. And if they got that map fragment would have enough landmarks in terms of what's around to not only enable them to try to go to the X marks the spot, but also get to this village and castle, get to the settlement. That was one element. Well, of course, they might not get there, or they might not get the map. It's not a foregone conclusion, depending on, remember, because a lot is going to depend, kind of the puzzle, if you will, of this place as a whole is how many chances do you take? What do you try to get before you decide to cut and run? Or how much do you try to do, or how little do you do before you make the decision, we're just going to cut and get the heck out of here? If you get over to this well and you inspect it and you deal with it, then you will get that map fragment. But you might not. You might just decide to go down and check this out. You might decide to go upstairs. You might not ever mess with that at all. Another way to get some of that information, though it's not quite as good because it doesn't have the X marks the spot, but it'll give you the map, is I decided to put on the wall, and I think I might make it a painting that's kind of crumbly. That'll be on this wall, on this floor. So if you come out this way, you will see this, and this will give you some of that same background. It's not as good in a sense as the map fragment because it doesn't have the X marks the spot. And there was some other information I think that might be in that satchel that might be helpful, but you get that. So, okay, here's another way. And we might say, again, having not played any of this through, if I was going to run this a bunch of times, I would say that at minimum, you think most people are going to get this part of it. This is the one that's the highest chance of getting something. And then I thought of this other aspect. So then two other things occurred to me. One was, I say this is a ruined fort, yet none of my drawings, mostly because of just practical, I'm not ready to crumble it up yet. I just haven't done it. So I've just used, it's drawn as if it were complete, even though the concept was that it was ruined. But then I started to think about it. Well, okay, well, I'm not showing it as ruined. Maybe it's not as ruined as it's supposed to be. Maybe they've been fixing it up. Someone, i.e. the cult, has been putting this castle back together, putting this fort back together, has been patching it up. So I had this idea of that instead of these cells being empty, that actually someone will be in one of these cells, and that someone will be a local mason from the village who they kidnapped at some point ago and forced them to kind of lead them through, help them, or at least manage or supervise them putting this fort back together, so that places that would have been ruined are actually been patched up. A lot of it's been patched up. And then I think I also had this idea that there's a mole, kind of backstory, but also setting up potentially for future adventures. There is an operative, if you want to put it, a spy, a mole, a secret cultist that is embedded in the retinue of this lord. And then I thought, well, okay, well, maybe some of the information is in the satchel, but maybe also the Mason has heard them talking about them in some way, maybe has some slightly, not necessarily different information, not conflicting or anything, but some different information about kind of who is this cultist type, that there's something going on, but we don't know who it is, or maybe we've heard a nickname, like maybe this will give kind of some information. This will give some kind of different information about the same person, but if they get this, they'll maybe get this fragment, they'll get this fragment. And then I thought, okay, well, maybe also the prisoner, this VIP who we now know is the daughter Melisande, she will also know something. And that any one of these clues will kind of give something, but maybe if you get a couple of them together, it will absolutely positively identify the person. Whereas if you just talk to the Mason or rescue the Mason, you'll get something to say like, yeah, there's a traitor in your midst, local lord. And then if you get to, and he's known as something. And then if, you get to her, she might say, oh yeah, or she's over here actually. Oh yeah, something else about it. But then if you get kind of combination of two of those and then maybe the satchel, or maybe there's something else because I'm going to put some papers or something probably in this area. If you get a couple of those, then you might get the absolute person, which again, if you're looking at, well, we can think of levels of victory. Okay, what is the absolute? If the most successful of this module will be that you rescue the Mason, which also stops them from, if there's any last repairs, by rescuing the Mason, they repairs are still not finished, and the Mason maybe knows some weak spots, right? You can probably help with sapping or ways to bring it down good. So rescuing the Mason prevents the cultists from fully finishing to rebuild or repair the fort. And you get that. You get obviously if you can get the daughter back, that's gonna put the Lord in make him very happy, and she's got some information, whatever, right? You look at like what would be like the best success would be like rescuing the VIP, rescuing the Mason, doing those kind of things. And it also is a little bit of explaining if the idea was, why was this like fort that's in good repair just being left out here? It's the pesos it wasn't, but the cult's been secretly building it up. And it also made me think about, And part of the same thinking was, well, all right, if you look at the map here, look at the map. Why doesn't they are unruining the keep? And Brian says, got to be the Viscount. Always evil Viscounts. Yep, they are unruining the keep. And one of the things I was thinking about is like, well, here we got this trail, which is the simplest way to get back. You exit the keep, you can hit the trail, and you come down. And there would definitely be some watch people here. But I thought to make it even more interesting and add even more, I don't know, danger to it, is I decided to have some cultist VIPs that are actually coming up the trail. That part of what this was on preparation for was that they're trying to repair the keep, do everything. I think somebody, whatever high priest, got a little bit too into their cups and decided to try to do one. You know, it often is. It's the thing that often happens with henchmen. You know, the second in commands of some evil person, and a lot. You know, it's a trope, happens on TV all the time, where they try to do too much. I always one of the ones that thinks about is the Michael Ironside character in the Total Recall, where he's going too far, and then what's his name, Bogomil from Beverly Hills Cop, who's what's his name in the movie, this sort of that who's running Mars, is basically tells him at one point to stop trying to be smart, like he doesn't know everything that's going on, and him trying to go the extra mile, and him trying to show his I'm clever and everything is just mucking up the work. So he's like, you know, be stupid. Like, I'm not paying you to be smart. I'm paying you to do this stupid thing. So just do the stupid thing. So in the same way that maybe the guy who sets this whole thing in a sense in motion by doing this ritual prematurely thought they were this VIP's coming. I want to show you, like, I'm going to show you, like, I'm going to make myself look really great in your eyes. So not only are we going to have the fort almost, you know, our Death Star is almost fully operational, but I'm also going to go ahead and build this an undead arm, you know, whatever is in his brain for what he's going to do. And then it all goes to hell. Things are going, but, you know, the VIP is coming. So the VIP is another person, someone else who's coming up the road with their, and I think the idea that they're planning to do, so I feel like if I was going to write out, which I might, maybe I will, is here, I'll make a copy here. Pasting just got easier. Thanks, Word. What is the cultist grand plan? A cult, I'm just going to put VIP, is on their way to inspect the progress on, let's see, repairing fort. Right, so a cult VIP is on their way to inspect the repairing fort, and then I think what they were going to do. My idea is that the original idea, their original thought process was, and there'll probably be letters to this effect, which maybe some of the part they can grab from something, is that they grab the daughter, and then they reveal. I think they want to do a grand reveal, but maybe this VIP will do kind of a grand reveal once he's there. The fort is, so, you know, you get the fort ready, right? So you get the fort, you know, you get it. And an interesting thing, it kind of like by taking the mason, it also it does some preventative stuff, because it reduces the ability of this lord to take down the fort, because this mason who may be able to say, like, hey, could probably be like, hey, put your, you know, we got to sap this over here, I can look it over here. The that's been prevented, right? So they've taken away this resource from the lord, from this noble, and now they've been able to apply it to themselves. And what I think the idea would be that they get the fort repaired, and then either they plan to, or just by luck, they were able to run into the daughter, or figure out, obviously the spy would have something to do with this, being able to send word out saying, oh yeah, the unexpectedly she went out with a hunting party to go find something, you know, somewhere in here, somewhere. They were able to get maybe an ambush or a track or do something. They're able to grab her with numbers, bring her back. And by the way, that also what I like about this is that if we're looking at like who are the bodies that are in some of these pits, and maybe how is there somebody with like a magic dagger down here? It's because it's her hunting party, and they might have had some items like that. So that kind of makes a little bit of an explainer about it's not just some poor peasant that they had got. It's actually some kind of minor nobles or retainers or folks who might actually have something there. So that's kind of a nice little explainer for, oh, why do these people, maybe they're kitted out a little bit better and have some gear that maybe you'd think, just some dude out in the woods had this? Like, no, not just some dude out of the woods. So they're coming, right? So they're coming. And so you have this idea of what's going on. They're preparing for this. The evil priest got a little ahead of themselves. And as they know that and Brian's been saying it's the evil Viscount coming. They know this kind of thing is coming. He tried to grandstand or just kind of like, whatever. It's all backfired. It's gone to heck. You have people here, cultists who are waiting on the trail for two reasons now. One, yeah, they're looking, they are guarding, but the other thing is they're kind of looking for word. They're trying to sort of watch for this person coming, this very important person, which explains why there maybe be a few more folks out there hanging around on the trail or on the sides of the trail than you might normally expect, because they're waiting to, you have like, instead of maybe having two guys here, maybe there are six guys, so that when they see him coming, they can even form more of a little bit of a retinue around him. And then they send one or two people running back or right to do things. You can understand maybe one of them goes to make a signal, or you can see how maybe, okay, now that we know this VIP is coming, that might explain why there are more folks on the trail. And may also makes the trail immensely dangerous, because that person, whoever that is, who's coming with their retinue, their guards, whatever, it's going to be a higher level. It's going to have some levels on them, and so are their guards. Probably not going to be something. They're going to be on horse, or maybe horse and on foot. So they see your proposition. You probably want to avoid it. And if the party does even some of the legwork, does something, they'll learn at least some of that information. And then they could use that information to say, like, we better not take that trail, or we better, figure something else, or, maybe, hey, we'll ambush them, whatever. Like, all things are possible. But I like the idea. I like the idea. But yeah. So Brian Smith says they probably want to kill any witnesses. Yeah, they're not gonna want to let. I mean, if the cult doesn't want anybody escaping, because the whole thing, what they were trying to do. So their plan was, I guess, to get back to that, is the VIP is going to show up. Like, if the party was involved, or if this whatever the priest did that went horribly wrong never happens, the VIP, they were going to get sacked, and they were going to get in some ceremony. The ceremony was going to happen after the Viscount arrived. They were maybe going to do something. I know, I'm sorry. Probably, I would say that probably the original plan had nothing to do with taking prisoners, because I think they're trying to be on the down low. They've got the Mason. They've captured the princess. Those are their main objective. Whether the princess was kind of a bit of luck, or I say princess, whatever, whether this noble person was just a bit of luck, or whether they were planning it way, they've got the Mason. They're trying to prepare the fort. They come into having the princess, this noble, in their possession. The VIP's coming, and has been told, communicated that they've got this person. So they're coming to do kind of a final inspection. The fort is going to finish getting ready. Then I think the plan would have been for them, everything had gone right, to basically let themselves be known, but saying to the local lord, essentially, you got to leave us alone, because we have your daughter as our hostage. So their goal would not have been to sacrifice anybody, do any of that. It would have been to keep this VIP hostage, to prevent the Lord from doing anything. And I think they figure that once they have this fort, they're not going to be able to hide it for that long, because any of that activity, if it hadn't already been known, they've been able to hide it so far, it's going to bring more attention. They're going to beef it up. But now they have the fort. So once they have the fort, it means that they can't be easily dug out. That any attempt to get them out is going to be, assuming that the Lord doesn't reach out to a band of adventurers to do it, that you're going to have to make a concerted effort to lay siege to the fort, do all this stuff, and now they have your daughter. So button it up, and maybe they say, hey, we'll make a deal. We're not interested in you down there. You stay over there, but you're not going to bother us either. You're going to give us free reign for the maybe it will say like you are going to cede to us for our use everything on our side of the river. That's going to be ours. You're not going to bother us. You're going to leave us alone. And if we have stuff that's coming on your road and then wants to cross the river and come to us, you're going to let it go. And you're going to do all this and you're going to be quiet about it because we have your daughter. So zip it, button it up. Like that's their plan, right? That's their ideal. How does this look like to them? That's their ideal outcome. Of course, it's all been kind of shot to hell now because there's undead in there. This place is not secure. It's not quite finished. Whatever the party's done, The VIP's coming, right? It's going to be a fun sort of chaos. But I like thinking about, in terms of the logic of everything, well, what would this all mean for them? So I feel like logically, that makes sense. That's their play. It doesn't have to be airtight. It doesn't have to be like there's no weaknesses. It doesn't have to be like, why would they do that? Well, they're making that choice. You may not agree with their choice, but I think their choice is reasonable. You can kind of reason about and say, okay, I can kind of see why they might think this, whether it's right or wrong. But now it's been mucked up. But I think it's nice to start. Granted, I didn't do this in my thinking, but having this idea of like, okay, well, this is their ideal version of what they were aiming for, and now this is what's happened. Brian Smith, what's the undead angle? Well, I imagine that I'm just calling them cultists. I imagine they're some kind of death cult or undeath cult, and that I think the idea was, like I said, though it may not have been clear, is that there's some kind of priest who's been here, who's been the local head of this, right? So the VIP coming, and maybe they're more of a regional manager. So you have the manager, and then you have the regional manager. The manager wants to put on a good show for the boss. The regional manager's coming. I got to put on a good show. So I'm pulling out all the stops. I know we've got this noble's daughter here. I know that we're on schedule for getting the fort completed, but that's not enough. I've learned some magics. I want to show them that I'm ready for the next step. I want to show them that I'm ready. I'm going to go above and beyond. They always say to shoot for the job that you want instead of the job that you have. So I'm going to push even further. I know I've never done it before. I saw a guy do it once, but never done it before, where they kind of turn people into undead minions and command them around. I've seen it done, right? I've been there at the quarterly cult meetings where they've done that. It's cool, but I can do that. And that's kind of where I want to be. I want to be there on the big stage. We have our next presentation, and they're giving out the little pendants over who exceeded expectations. I want to be on that podium with the president of the cult. So I am going to go ahead and do one of those rituals now, so that when the regional manager arrives, not only will he see that we've got the noble's daughter, not only will he see that the fort is on schedule, maybe even ahead of schedule to be finished repairs, but he's also going to see this undead fighting force of extraordinary magnitude. And that's my way to getting a promotion. All right, that's his thought font. Up until the moment where he tries to cast the ritual, do whatever, and it all goes horribly wrong. Or, somewhat wrong. He might argue, and I haven't decided if he's alive or dead or where he is, that it actually was kind of a success. He did create undead. The control part he's got to work on. But, he's doing this from scraps he's picked up, tidbits. Right? This is why he needs to have access to the whole book. He's only seen bits of the Necronomicon. He needs to see the whole thing, and that's what that would be what he would say when he goes in for the HR meeting after this is all done. He's definitely going to say that this is proven that he needs access to the entire Necronomicon because he was so close. And let's face it, as every good cultist knows, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. And this is just kind of what happens. But clearly he has demonstrated he has what it takes. That's his reason. So that is the undead angle. Brian Smith's imagining the encounter on the trail by such a dramatic moment. Speaking with the Viscount lets them go with an air of civility, and then we're out of earshot, sending his goons. Yeah, the only problem with that, Brian Smith, is I don't think the Viscount would want to reveal to anybody that. I don't think he'd want to even take the risk that somebody would escape and have seen his face, kind of thing. This is like a whatever that guy, the assassin's name in Twins, who has to kill poor Mr. Beetroot because Mr. Beetroot saw his face. I don't think he would take that. So if it was I don't think I would make it the evil Viscount himself because I want that guy to still be. The idea with the mole is it's the benefit, if you will, of having a mole here, whether they're exposed or not, is it's an invitation to further adventures, right? This adventure ends when the party gets, assuming it ends successfully anyway, if the party can make it back to this settlement here. And then you can have an epilogue with the manner of their arrival. They arrive with the daughter and the mason and whatever, right? They arrive with those folks or whatever information they have, and you can kind of, if you want to say, in a sense, at the end of this adventure, they could kind of grade their performance based on how much of the intel and stuff that they got before they got back. Then, if you want to have further adventures, you could either have, well, they know there's a mole, but they don't know who the mole is, and then you can have a fun cat and mouse. If they did discover the full identity of the mole, maybe the mole escapes before justice can be done, and then you can have a whole other adventures as you're trying to track down the mole, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think I want them to find out here. I want it to be something that is like a hook for the future. Because whatever happens with that mole, it's kind of introducing hooks to keep that story going if they want to. Yeah, I mean, it would be, yes, that would be, I could see how you could say it's a means of overconfidence. Absolutely. I think I would just have it be somebody else. Let the mole be, I mean, you could still, the thing is, Brian Smith, you could still play out that moment, so to speak, at the castle. When they go to the Lord and they're going to reveal something, and then there's this other person there, and they're ha he hoo hoo hoo, and then you could have some great moment where it gets like, no, it is you, whatever it is. Like you could have this kind of moment of a little bit of playing smart or trying to be smart, and then the expose happens, kind of what they do. I think you can still have that moment if you want it. I just wouldn't put it in that spot, I don't think. Plus, I want to have somebody I want to introduce. Part of it too is I want to introduce some, like have a couple different characters sort of show up that you can build off of. So I like that too. Brian Smith, that the Mason is rescued, he becomes a Freemason, and thus the secret society is born. Yes, that is true. Very true. That is how all secret societies start. Well, I didn't actually get that much done in this hour, but I was glad to talk through things. I'm kind of happy with that. Whatever I'm calling it, in my brain, I'm calling it overloaded morale, but that's not really it. So I'm kind of really happy about this. What I'm probably gonna do is make this a universal table, and then I can just have like morale, confident, whatever, extreme, and then have the things. And I could do that for some different things. I was also thinking that you could roll that with the undead. That was another thing I was thinking about, which is because undead technically, right, they have no morale. So what does morale mean for the undead? And I was thinking it could be that kind of how active they are. Like if you roll and that's this horrible morale, maybe it's that they're kind of more dormant. And it's those scenes. I didn't like the movie, but it was like whatever that movie was with the undead in Vegas. It was on Netflix. Who did that? Was that a Michael Bay? In any case, where the undead who were in this kind of dormant state, and you could literally try to tiptoe around them. And of course, you just don't want to make any noise. Like you could have you could play around with these different things where, okay, well, here's morale, but now we're applying it to something. Granted, doesn't usually have morale, but we can think of some different ways that might be. So you can have an ooze. I mean, the gray ooze has morale. I don't know why, but the ooze, okay, so what is an ooze that's extremely confident doing? Maybe it's really aggressive. It's coming for you. Or maybe it's, again, kind of dormant. It's very still, almost playing dead, or it's in some kind of hibernation sort of thing. And then that allows the party to either maybe move through or take a different tack or something. So I thought you can have some fun with that, where you can, because it kind of is in a sense overloaded, or it's has this kind of combo use of both morale and also in a sense fictional positioning. that you can apply to things that maybe the morale part doesn't necessarily make sense, but the fictional positioning makes sense. That kind of context. Just add some extra context. Add a little bit of extra juice, if you will. A little extra juice to be squeezed. So it was good talking that out. So that's all I got. I mean, I did technically 3 streams today. So everybody got their money's worth out of me today, whatever that means to you. I got to get things packed up and get ready to hit the road. So I'm going to let you guys go. I will definitely do some work of this over the weekend. I don't know if it'll be in much better shape on Tuesday. I don't know what'll happen. I don't intend to really stream on Monday, but I think I might do. The nice thing, as I said before, about the vertical streams on my phone is I can just flip my phone, chat for 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is, and then let it go. It doesn't feel as much of a process in things as these are, even though these don't necessarily take any longer or anything. I don't have to be seated in a place. I can be kind of anywhere. I'm kind of curious if what it's like if I stream from away from Wi-Fi, because I thought the other day I was kind of out and I was like, oh, I could sit in the park and I had an idea and I could talk about it for a few minutes. But then I thought, I don't know how the bandwidth is for this. I mean, it can't be. I mean, if it's the same essentially as FaceTime or anything like that, it might work okay. Troxon says, you like the juice? That's right. Always in for the juice, as long as it's worth the stream. The squeeze, rather. And Dave, hey, thanks for hanging out. Everybody have a great long weekend. Like I said, don't count on me on Monday. I will most likely be out. If I do something stream, it'll probably be like just a vertical stream about whatever. But I'm going to keep plugging away, and we'll see where I'm at next week. Have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on. Talk to you later. Bye now, everybody.